working moms.
Hey, working dads.
Hey, aspiring working parents.
And allies of working parents.
Are you in search of your pillow?
Does it take you 24 hours just to get out the door in the morning?
Are you the family ATM?
Or the family Uber driver?
Are you on a Zoom call for work while carpooling while also watching a practice?
If so, welcome to our world, the Parents at Work podcast.
I'm Lori.
I'm Jason.
We are married.
And we have two wild and crazy redheaded boys.
We're here to shine a light on the roller coaster ride that is working parenthood. I'm a healthcare lawyer and founder of a working parent community called Mindful Return.
And I'm an executive coach with Ready, Set, Launch, LLC. I wrote a cool book called Relationships to Infinity.
And I wrote a cool book called Back to Work After Baby.
Well, hello, Lori Mihalich-Levin.
Hello, Jason Levin. It's good to be back with you on the Parents at Work podcast.
It is an honor and a pleasure to be back with you on the Parents at Work podcast. And now that we're in this post-Olympic reflection, although we do have the Paralympics that are still happening, I have been thinking a great deal about how every athlete in their interviews, in some way or another, we're talking about sleep. And as we've been married with children, I think our relationship to sleep has evolved.
It sure has, Jason.
It has definitely evolved. So, Lori, my partner, my love of my life, my best friend, all these Olympians are talking about sleep. Tell me about your relationship to sleep. When did you started to think about sleep being important?
Well, I don't know about the first time I thought sleep was important, but I do want to point out that in the parenting world, all the conversations around sleep seem to focus on our child's sleep and our baby's sleep and how to sleep train and how to bring in an expert and what, schedule to follow and what about the naps and then the naps dropping. And I understand the importance of those conversations, particularly because they often dictate whether or not we will be able to sleep. I don't think there are enough conversations about our sleep, our grown-up sleep, our parents' sleep, and the importance of it. And so I think the time that sleep became the most critical for me was when our second son, first son, still not sleeping, but it was our second son that put me over the edge in terms of just the frequent night wake-ups. And I don't think I truly understood the huge correlation between my interrupted sleep and my own mental health and my own feelings of distress and guilt and anxiety. I would joke that I need a 3-hour stretch in order to be okay in a day.
Right.
And often in that first year with 2 children, I wasn't even getting a 3-hour stretch. I think I was really sacrificing my own sanity for the quote unquote well-being of my breastfeeding child. So
wow. And let's stay in that moment and in that time period. How did you get through it? And reflecting on that, are there things you might have changed or done differently?
yeah. It was very messy. You recall it. How did I
messy.
get through it? I cried a lot. I had a lot of insomnia. I would lie there for hours, waiting, hoping, praying to fall asleep. I would go down to the couch. I would do all the things, put the feet up against the wall and trying to distract myself and count to a gazillion. And none of it worked because my rhythms were so off. One thing that was like a temporary, just a couple of days when I was in crisis mode, one of us would drop the kids off at daycare, and then I would come back and sleep before going to work because I was completely dysfunctional.
Right.
And then a couple of other things that I ultimately did were to get a therapist, get some antidepressants, wean our children. I think, and you asked, what would I do differently? I think I would have prioritized my own mental health a bit more and I hate to say relied more on you with the bottles, but I think I would have gone to the sorry, bud, but you only get daddy or a bottle in the middle of the night a little bit sooner than we did. I think we did that probably around the year or 15 months or something like that. But I think I wish I had I wish I had prioritized it more for myself. How about you?
Okay.
What were the memories of those early days of parenthood like for you with respect to sleep?
Well, I think there was two inflection points because our boys are about 2 years apart, uh, whereas our youngest son would say 2 months, 2 years, 3 months. Yeah, so
And
to
he knows the
the
days and the seconds and the
yeah,
minutes, whatever. Yeah.
yeah. It's funny. You don't know what you don't know, and it's you get the kids you have, not the kids that are in the books or other people's experiences with their own kids. And I think the first year with our first son, who was very attached to you, I used to say all the time he had a case of the mommies.
Uh-huh.
I was struck by the number of interrupted nights. And I think in the set when, we went and had our lovely second, he went through that 9-month time period where he woke up at 4:45 in the morning every single day.
Ready to go. Like not
Ready to go.
and then ready to go back to bed. No, like his day
Yeah.
started at like 4:45.
Yeah.
Every
So I
day.
remember a 9-month period where even on Saturday and Sunday at 4:45 in the morning, that was the standard.
And you and I took turns. Like I would sleep until the normal wake up of whatever 6 o'clock. And you would take it, and then the next day we would flip
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, we were using our calendar to at least give the other person the opportunity to sleep a little bit later so that when our older child woke up at, whatever it was, 6 or 7 in the morning, 6, 7.
6, 7.
So you're asking me what I would have done differently. And what have I have done differently? I mean, I was still in a pre-ADHD diagnosis world, and now we know that those that have ADHD also struggle going to sleep.
Why is that,
Uh,
Jason? Why do you think that is?
Why is it that ADHD people struggle going to sleep?
Yes. It's obvious to
Um,
you, but not to those of us who may not have ADHD.
All right, so one of the concepts within ADHD, which I definitely have, is the racing brain. The racing brain is you have so many different ideas, you can't act on any one of them. It's the series of radio stations that you can't tune into. And so that still happens at night. And so there's all these different things that are racing around. And so it's hard to calm that and go to bed without a process, without a series of intentions. And so I didn't realize what I had. And so even when it was time to go to bed, I wasn't prepared to go to bed because my mind was still blowing up with all the things that happened with the kids, with work, with all, and so it was hard for me to sleep or sleep soundly.
I'm
So
thinking about our kiddo too, our youngest who also has ADHD, and I'm remembering how, and we can talk about what has helped you and him both, but in the earlier days before he had an ADHD diagnosis and we didn't really know what was going on for him, at night he would come out of his room over and over and he would say, I have this question and I can't fall asleep until somebody gives me an answer. So could you please look this up? And it would just be something like, I don't know, how many bricks are in the tallest building or something, and like that was a consistent theme for a long time.
I wanted to buy him the Encyclopedia Britannica and just put it in his room. It's like, all right, you have
Hey,
a
go look it
question,
up.
just go look it up. So yes. All right. So, so we had the early stage and the kids were young and, the whole 1 + 1 = 85 and you got into a rhythm and you got a therapist, you went on antidepressants.
I went on work trips where I got to sleep through the night.
You went on work trips.
That was the other helpful tool. Every now and
Yeah.
then, a little respite. And so did you, get away for a
Right.
few days.
Yeah, exactly. You went on work trips. You were comfortable because, as we talked about in one of our prior episodes, we had the babysitting bench
Uh-huh.
and the parent helpers and all those things. So, the kids are going from daycare into elementary school. How are you thinking about sleep at that moment as you're evolving as a parent?
Well, we joke about this a lot, Jason, but we're like, I get to see my pillow more. It's so beautiful and it's exciting. And I just remember the glorious joy of not having to get up with our children on weekends when they became self-sufficient enough to go downstairs and like pull something out of the fridge, like a yogurt. They could open the yogurt themselves. They could get a spoon. They could entertain themselves for a little while. And I don't know, there was just something magical and transformative about those elementary school years when sleeping in was a thing again. And sleeping consecutive hours of the night was a thing again. So, how about you, Jason? What about those middle years for you?
It's funny. You're reminding me that that was like a big inflection point,
Mm.
that our kids didn't need us in the morning for a period of time. And I remember often reminding them, it's like, okay, it's Friday night and, it's going to be Saturday. So if you guys need to do anything, you can go over there and you don't have to bother us.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And
Uh,
sometimes they would take it literally and there would be like the clock would hit, I don't know, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And they would like come in and like, are you up yet?
Yeah. Yeah. I just remembered one other thing that was a challenge um during those years, which was I was often, and I think you were too, maybe to a little bit lesser extent, but I was often working the split shift where I would like leave the office, do all the kid stuff, and then um once the kids were sleeping a little bit more, I couldn't do it while they were infants, but once they were sleeping a little bit more, I would go back online and work for a couple of hours before going to sleep. And I think for me, the biggest challenge at that point was like that nighttime boundary setting of like, I have to turn off at a certain time. And so, I mean, now in Mindful Return, when I do talks and programs for employers, I'm often talking about like how to set a nighttime sleep boundary for yourself. Around that time, I also read Ariana Huffington's book about sleep called The Sleep Revolution. And there were a couple of things that I learned to do for myself to make sure that I stopped at night. One was to set a specific time. So for ages, 10:30 was like my cutoff. You shall not work past this time unless there's an emergency. Um, Two was to have a non-screen related next enjoyable activity. So like, okay, I'm going to reward myself by reading 3 pages of this book I really like before going to sleep to get myself off the screen. Also like just the act of having an accountability partner, like telling you I'm shutting down at 10:30 tonight. Even if you did nothing with that information, it mattered to me that I said it out loud and someone else heard it and I felt like I needed to follow it. So, um, what else did I learn? Oh, that you can have a mantra like, can't get it all done tonight. Shutting down now. Now's the time to close. Um, and I think those things helped me set that firmer boundary. I mean, we'll talk about the current stage of life, but I'm trying not to do as much of the split shift anymore.
I like it's almost like we talk about kids' bedtimes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about adult bedtimes.
Yeah, we need rituals too.
Yeah, adults need bedtimes.
Yes.
And what would that look like if an adult had a bedtime,
Mm-hmm.
and how to create those wonderful rituals. You use the term, and I don't know if everybody's fully aware of the term, the split shift.
Oh,
Say
fair.
more, Lori
Yeah.
Mihalich-Levin. What is the split shift?
The idea is you're still working a full workday, but you are splitting up that workday between work, home, and then work again. And so I remember when our daycare closed at 5:45, and I would leave work at like, I don't know, around 4:45 or so that I could get on the metro and get home and get to the daycare. Like that wasn't the end of the workday. Um, and I don't know, I guess it's a combination of I probably didn't need to quote unquote make up the time since I was getting there early enough in the morning, but I had a job where people were counting on me to respond to things. So I'd come home, I'd disconnect from work for a few hours. When I was at a law firm, I made sure that my clients knew that during those hours, they could always reach me on text, but I was not checking email. And, my colleagues knew that I wasn't on email at those times. And then I'd participate in the bath time routine and all that and put the kids to bed, which, back in the early days, they were going to bed pretty early. Like, I mean, I hear from a lot of new parents how little time they get. And I remember how little time you get with your kid when they're super small, right? And then I would get back online and work again. Now we see our kids from like 4 to 9 every night. I mean, it's this huge hunk of time where, they're just in a totally different life stage.
But I'm glad you defined the split shift,
Mm.
because there are so many parents that need that to be able to go home and pick up their kids. And, you often talk about winning the management lottery for managers of people that have kids of that age that are living that split shift. I remember one of our earlier podcasts a couple of years ago when we were interviewing Nedra Pickler, who used to cover the White House. And she needed to get home to pick up her kids, and there would be a briefing at 5 o'clock. And so I'm glad you brought up the split shift, because I think that's something that we still need to talk about, and is important. So,
Yeah, and it directly affects sleep, of course.
yes, and it affects sleep.
Okay, so fast forward a little bit. How about like the past couple of years as we've had middle schoolers? How have you been thinking about sleep, Jason?
Wow. How have I been thinking about sleep? I think that I think it's hard for, having our youngest and myself now fully in our ADHD diagnosis. Now I understand why he was having problems going to sleep, why I was having problems going to sleep. I think what's also easier about sleep now, or at least when the kids were in middle school, I mean, they're, one's in middle school, one's in high school now. We used to be so involved in the nighttime ritual. Like, infant, toddler, pre-K, elementary school, there was like this nighttime ritual where we were involved in every step of that process. All right, let's go take a bath. And you're like there because they don't know how to take a bath. The cool thing about middle school is you just need to remind them to take a shower. And,
yes.
and as in the middle school stage for boys, it's like, all right, please take a shower. Please use deodorant.
Yes.
Please take a shower. Please use deodorant. I think the sleep got better because there was this, all right, I knew I was going to sleep the night. I knew they were going to sleep the night. So I think there was at least a consistency with it, with the exception of whenever school started. I think in middle school, whenever school started, there was this disruption that I think August, September was always this challenge because we didn't know we were getting into a new cycle of things.
Yeah.
How about for you? How was middle? Go ahead.
Before we go over to me, I would love if you would talk a little bit about your experience and what we've seen with our youngest with respect to melatonin. And, disclaimer for the audience, we are not medical practitioners. We are not giving any medical advice here. We are simply describing perhaps like our own initial reluctance and then how melatonin has changed things for us.
Yeah, and it's something that I had spoken with my psychiatrist about, and my psychiatrist is a different person than my son's psychiatrist, although as we've learned, families can have the same psychiatrist because we share the same DNA. But in both of those conversations, they, amongst other things, they said, have you tried melatonin? And so I did not. And so when I started using melatonin, and actually it's a low dose. I'm at 3 milligrams. You can go as high as, some take 5, some take 10. And essentially, within 45 minutes to an hour, it's been very helpful to me in two ways. One, actually falling asleep. And then secondly, the soundness of my sleep. So I think once I finally asked the question to the psychiatrist, which took, a while, and then getting it consistently as part of my nighttime routine. And so I actually have melatonin in different parts of the house because sometimes I'll forget.
I was like, but do you take it every night?
Probably 3 out of 7. Probably 3 nights out of 7. Because the 4 nights my racing brain is still allowing me to go in different directions to even take the melatonin.
Yeah.
Luckily, our youngest son is much more diligent about taking his.
Well, I was thinking maybe there's a page to take out of his book. He has an Apple Watch, and he sets the alarm on his Apple Watch for 8 p.m. every night to take the melatonin so that he is completely out by 9 because he really can't keep his eyes open an hour after he takes his melatonin gummy. Yeah.
Yes. And I will say that I think melatonin has been helpful. And also what also has been helpful is, aerobic exercise. So anytime I swim, anytime I'll be at the gym swimming like once or twice a week, usually 48 to 72 hours after I swim, like my sleep's amazing. Now with the weather getting better, I'm going to start jogging again. So, but yeah, I think melatonin has been very, very helpful. I just need to remind myself to actually do it. And what you're suggesting makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I also think we failed to tell everyone that, maybe it's because of the ADHD or not, or just our nature. You tend to be a night owl, night person. You prefer to hang out in the evenings, and I tend to be a morning person. And, I think that plays into the sleep patterns a little bit too. Peace out. I want to go to bed. Leave me alone. And I'm fine getting up earlier. Whereas I think you just have a different, natural body cadence.
Well, I mean, talking about sleep from the time our kids were born. So before our kids were born, we were having dinner at 8 or 8:30 in the evening, joking like everybody else. Who the heck has dinner at 5:30 or 6?
We do.
And then we realize after you have children, there's a certain bedtime that needs to happen. And I think that whole flow switched everything.
Yeah.
So before kids, I would go to bed after you.
Yeah.
And so some of that has not changed.
Yeah. So, Indeed.
So now with the kids as old as they are, how are you thinking about sleep?
Yeah. I think for me, something really shifted when I had the breast cancer diagnosis last year and then had a really large surgery. I mean, I had a double mastectomy with a deep flap reconstruction, which is basically taking your abdominal tissue and using it to recreate your breasts, which leaves you with this gigantic scar from hip to hip, plus under the breasts. And I mentioned that just to say it was a huge recovery. And apparently your body needs a lot of energy to rebuild itself after this major surgery. And so, I mean, during the couple of weeks immediately after surgery, I probably slept 75 to 80% of the day. And then over time, that went down. I remember we went on a trip to the West Coast, maybe a month and a half to 2 months after my surgery. And I needed to lay down and take a nap at various points during the day. I just couldn't make it through the whole day. By the fall, I was able to stay awake all day, but I was still sleeping 12 hours a night. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And once again, it's a huge deal for your body to have to recover from. Now I'm back to being able to sleep a more quote unquote normal amount. But even for me, that normal amount has changed now. And I feel like a million times more like myself if I get a full 8 hours of sleep at night. And some nights, as you know, I can't keep my eyes open past 9:30 anymore. I think I have tried really hard and with a fair amount of success to not do the the split shift anymore. I had to give it up during the surgery recovery. And like, for me right now, there's just not a good reason to bring it back unless there's something like urgent that needs to get done. And I also think, I mean, I'm 47. No, I'm not yet. I'm 46, but in a few weeks I will be 47. Don't want to advance myself yet. And I'm in that perimenopause phase, right? Where I know that the sleep demons are about to come get me because I watch all of my friends, and I do, have some night sweats and have to get up to pee sometimes in the middle of the night. And so that's a little bit disruptive, and I suspect will be an ongoing journey for me. But like, I mean, there's a Yogi Berra, "It gets late early" quote that I think applies more and more to me. And I'm just more determined I think I've also evolved to let myself take care of my body better, probably also because of the surgery and having cancer, and saying, like, if my body's telling me I need extra sleep, I'm going to go give it to my body because that's really important. And I don't think I valued that enough a decade ago.
Sounds like you're being kinder to yourself.
I am. Yeah. Thank you, Jason.
I like that.
I am
very
indeed.
nice. You're being kinder to yourself. You're setting boundaries. You're listening to yourself and making adjustments when you need to.
Yeah. So we get to see our pillows a bit more. Do you have any closing thoughts on sleep, Jason?
Well, speaking of pillows, I just want to let everybody know I actually got an injury recently on my right tricep, and I want to make sure that everybody is checking their pillows because I was going to PT because my right tricep kept on hurting, and they didn't understand how I got the injury in the first place. I didn't. I thought it was from lifting weights, but it didn't make sense because usually when I'm doing, my, bench press or whatever, I'm using both. And then the PT person says, "Well, how do you sleep?" And I'm like, "Oh, I sleep like this." And it turns out...
Describe what you mean for those who are listening rather than seeing.
Right. So I sleep on my right side and I use my right arm to hold up my head because what had happened is that I hadn't changed out my pillow in I don't know how many years. So we went and bought new pillows and life became wonderful again. Yes. So I can only recommend to people just switch out your pillows.
There's a pillow test.
Yeah, when you fold it and then...
If it doesn't spring back.
Yeah, exactly. And when I actually did the pillow test, which I had not done for years, it was obvious that the pillow I was on was way beyond its useful life.
Yes.
So...
Yes. I imagine that there's also a when to replace the mattress conversation in our future. And in the meantime, until we have that, I did a couple of months ago spin the mattress around to rotate it so that we don't have the gully sort of in the middle anymore. It's now repositioned. So if you haven't spun the mattress around lately, that might be another thing to put on your to-do list.
Yes. So my parting thought is hopefully this sleep conversation has not put you to bed, and also making it a priority and finding accountability in this, I think, is really, really important. And different stages of parenthood that will mean different things for you and what you need. So,
and I, before we close out, Jason, really just wanted to sing on this episode. Let's talk about sleep, baby. Let's talk about you and me. And I didn't do it at the beginning, so I'm glad I got that in before we concluded. On that note,
I feel better knowing that. So
awesome.
Jason Levin and Lori Mihalich-Levin for the Parents at Work podcast, where we say to you, get some sleep.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye. Thanks.